Now, the Trading App Store Showcase here at TradeStation highlights those different developers that have created an app that is closely aligned with the TradeStation Trading App Store or the trading platform. Now, this is not an offer or a solicitation to buy or sell securities, security derivatives, or futures products of any kind, or any type of trading or investment advice or recommendations or strategies. None of this is being given in any manner endorsed by TradeStation or any TradeStation affiliate. And the information that we're making available to you today and that we will make available on our website is not an offer or a solicitation of any kind in any jurisdiction where TradeStation or any TradeStation affiliate is not authorized to do business. With that in mind, I want to turn things over to Jose Blasco right now as he introduces to you his AutoUFOs app for use on the TradeStation platform. Jose, welcome to TradeStation.
Thank you very much. A pleasure to be here. Hello, everyone. My name is Jose Blasco. I'll be taking care of this presentation today to talk about AutoUFOs. But before we begin, let's start with the least exciting part of the day, which is when I read the disclaimer. So I'll do this very quickly so we can jump into those AutoUFOs. So disclaimer, the following videos, clips, demonstrations are for educational and instructional purposes only. Tradictive provides these videos purely for the purpose of demonstrating a method of using the product. Users understand that all the content used in this video is purely for demonstration purposes only, is not a guide, and does not provide any indication or prediction of actual results. As a user, you understand and agree that hypothetical results obtained through the demonstration do not indicate in any way the results you may receive from using our products. Very good. So ready to begin here with the presentation, and very quickly, let's take a look at the agenda for today. Where the first thing that we will do is to understand what is AutoUFOs, what are those little flying saucers on the screen, and how to use them, and what's the purpose, and applications, etc. We look at the Trading App Store subscription process. So you can, as we leave this session, you know the process on how to activate the app within your TradeStation platform. We will look at downloading and launching the app within TradeStation, mechanics on how to get the app running in your TradeStation. We'll talk about calibration, which is a very important process, and you will see what that means and how it works in a few minutes from now. We will look at using AutoUFOs and the various ways on how to do that. First, we'll look at using AutoUFOs on its own, then combined with other tools. Then we will look at using AutoUFOs for short, but also for intermediate term trading, or for also long-term trading. So we'll look at different time frame applications if you wish. We'll talk about using AutoUFOs to trade directionally, either using futures or Forex, stocks, ETFs, or even options. And talking about options, we'll look at using AutoUFOs to trade non-directionally as well. So really, there is a collection of things that we're going to be exploring today, and I will summarize all of it in the end with a little list of benefits, and we'll obviously as well go over questions and answers and look at real-time charts. I will begin the presentation with the slides just to have a little bit of structure on how I explain certain things so we understand what is AutoUFOs. But from there, we will certainly move into real-time charts and look at specific examples that are happening right now as we speak. So first of all, about us and our app. Well, we could certainly talk about our company, but to summarize it very quickly, because really you can find this information in our website as well. So to summarize it very quickly, Tradictive, which is the company that has developed the AutoUFOs app, is a technology company that creates technology for traders, investors, and hedgers. The website tradewithufos.com is a website that refers to the product itself. So there is a section with a guide, examples, samples, all sort of particular sections that could be very useful to the user of the app. And the company behind it is a technology company, which obviously markets became electronic in the 90s. So what a great combination to use technology with TradeStation in order to be able to be more efficient in the marketplace. Now, let's begin with understanding better what is auto UFOs. So let's talk about it from three angles. First, of the concept behind the tool, the look and feel, and then let's look at a specific definition. Okay, and I would like to begin with the look and feel, if that's okay, because auto UFOs, well, obviously the three-letter acronym UFO, which is normally known for unknown flying object, in this case actually represents or refers to on-field orders in the marketplace. So this tool is a tool that is looking at order flow, but also the way this collection of buy or sell orders that are still in a pending state waiting to get filled, the way this is visually represented on the screen is based on those flying saucers that you could see on the right side, either red color or green color, which obviously green would represent on-field orders waiting to get filled to buy, and red would represent on-field orders waiting to get filled to sell. So the colors green and red represents buy and sell orders basically. But before we get a little deeper into this, let's go ahead and read this, a little bit of a long paragraph, but if that's okay, let's use a little patience to go through this paragraph together, because it's going to be very key for you to understand what the tool is doing behind the scenes. So what it says there in the concept column is that there are many theories that try to explain why markets move either up or down. An undeniable fact is that behind the scenes there is an underlying force which is made of buy or sell orders, which pushes prices either up or down when those orders get executed. So the reason why the orders are there in the first place could be really diverse. It could be news, it could be geopolitical events, it could be company earnings, fundamental or technical analysis theories, it could be just pure speculation, artificial intelligence, algos, trading robots, hedging needs, etc., you name it. But the very existence of those orders is what's responsible for price movement, meaning that without those orders being executed, a market will not move at all. Therefore, the process by which buy or sell orders change from being on field to being filled is what's responsible for those market movements. Of course, traders, we normally profit from catching market movements and riding those moves. That is when we trade directionally. Trading non-directionally, which means that you are going to profit in a different form, which as we will explore at the end of the presentation. But basically, understanding what a market is going to do is what this tool is going to help us to identify based on the order flow available behind the scenes. So the above concept is the reason for the name of this app, which is UFOs, that stands for on-field orders. So Auto UFOs is an app that plots price regions in a chart that resemble flying saucers. And there is a very specific meaning to this round circle within a circle on the right side of the chart, which I will describe in a minute. So this Auto UFOs app plots those price regions in a chart that resemble flying saucers. They are located where potential buy or sell orders are still in an on-field state. And remember, those potential orders are expected to be in waiting mode and could be executed once a market revisits or returns to those flying saucers. At that moment in time, a market movement would be expected, and that is how a trader could plan trades in a way that is quite efficient, expecting price to move from a green saucer to a red saucer, or vice versa, from red to green or green to red. So hedgers, professional traders, investors often rely on those on-field orders to identify when to buy or when to sell, right before a market movement is about to happen, or also very importantly about to stop, which meaning that those flying saucers, those UFOs, could be used either for entries or for exits, for both cases. And we'll look at examples in a few minutes from now. Okay. Now I see a lot of typing in the chat box right now, and if that's okay with you guys, what I'll do for now is just go over the presentation. So I provide a little bit of structure on the tool, and I get everybody at the same in the same place when it comes to the understanding of the tool, and from there I would take all your questions. Okay. So we have the concept that we just explored. The look and feel, as we just saw in the center part of the screen, is going to be those green and red flying saucers. And then on the right side, now we have a generic definition, which I would like to also explore with you together, because there are a few key concepts for us to be understood. So AutoUFOs is an app designed to enhance your trading performance by adding more precision when planning entries and exits. So two concepts: adding precision, which is always important in the life of a trader, because adding precision reduces the risk, but also planning entries and exits, which means that those UFOs could be used to either initiate or close a trade. Now, this is done by eliminating any sort of subjectivity, and also spending less time looking for trade ideas and their executions. Why? Because we're going to have technology work for us. When a computer when a computer is performing some sort of a process, you are now guaranteed that the human component will not interfere the process itself. In other words, we'll remove subjectivity. But also, the beauty of a computer processing a process is that this is going to imply less of our human time, if you wish, to do this process manually. And it's kind of like using a calculator when doing a math exercise. So you save time, and you also have a higher probability of a more accurate result. So that's the idea. AutoUFOs assist traders in trading mechanically with more confidence and less emotions, which improves consistency. So two more concepts here. Trading mechanically, I mean, the goal of any trader is always to produce consistent results, and this can only be achieved by having consistent action in place. To have consistent action in place, well, obviously, removing subjectivity, removing emotions, everything that we said about technology is going to help to be more mechanical and therefore produce more consistent action. But also, what's important, as you will see in a few slides from now, is that this tool will also allow you to measure statistical results. So put yourself in the shoes of a new trader about to trade a new market, for example, that you have never traded before, and maybe you have mastered a specific methodology on a specific market, but you never apply it to another market. For example, you are used to trade the Nasdaq, but you never apply that methodology to the euro, and you don't know what to expect. So the beauty of AutoUFOs is that it will be able to give you statistical measurements of what would happen if you were to apply the methodology before you apply the methodology, and that's gonna give you a better understanding of what to expect, and therefore work on your confidence. The moment you have a better level of confidence, then it's easier to manage emotions, which it's probably one of the most difficult components of all for a trader, which is to manage the mindset. AutoUFOs can be applied to all assets and all time frames. So in other words, all assets and all trading styles, intraday, long-term, short-term, all sort of trading, as we will see in the examples that are coming. And very important as well for you to keep in mind is that AutoUFOs can be used on its own, but it can also be used combined with something else, meaning that maybe a trader is doing fundamental analysis and wants to add to the fundamental analysis, wants to add some timing, to the life of that trader. So AutoUFOs can be used for that. Or maybe the trader is technical, uses technical analysis, maybe chart patterns, maybe breakouts, maybe FIBs, Fibonacci retracements, or projections, overlaying UFOs on top of whatever else a trader may do, maybe kind of like adding odds to increase the potential for success. So this is a pretty long explanation to explain what is AutoUFOs, but at the same time, I think it was, before we get into examples and so on, it was important to understand well the tool, and also since this video is going to be then recorded and posted on YouTube, you can always go back and and revisit this long definition if you wish, but there are key points that I touch on this slide that are to be remembered. So how to subscribe? So that's actually quite simple. I'm going to switch in a second to a web browser. In order to subscribe, you just simply need to connect with the TradeStation Trading App Store. You can either connect to it by using the link that you can see there on step 1, which is tradestation.tradingappstore.com/products/AutoUFOs, and that would bring you directly to the page itself where you could subscribe to the app. Let me switch from this presentation to the website itself. I believe that at this moment in time you should be able to see my website. It would be greatly appreciated if you could type a quick yes in the chat box, just for me to know that you see the website. And if you see this website, this is actually the TradeStation App Store website, where you can see on the upper right you have 2 buttons. One which is the orange color button, which is the free trial, and then on the right the blue color button, which is the subscribe. So you would click on any of those 2 buttons to get access to this app within your TradeStation. The Trading App Store, it's actually very powerful. It's a very powerful technology where the moment you subscribe to either the free trial or the subscription of the app itself, automatically the App Store will deliver the app to your TradeStation. And it's really powerful because you don't need to do anything technically speaking to have access to the app within your TradeStation. So it's very convenient. I'm coming back to the slides now. We may have a little switch between the website to the slides. So it would be greatly appreciated if you could confirm on the chat box that you are back to see my slide presentation. That would be great. And again, I see a few of your questions as well. We'll look at percentages and everything is coming. We'll talk about the calibration. Thank you so much, guys. And then the next matter for me to explain is how to launch it. So you have 2 ways on how to launch the app. You can either insert AutoUFOs in any chart, or you can use the ready-to-use workspace, which is built in. So let me show you 2 ways. First of all, how to manually insert this indicator into a TradeStation chart. So that would slightly depend if you're using TradeStation 10 or TradeStation 9.5. If you're using TradeStation 10, you would just follow the following steps. So step 1, you would locate the toolbar within the chart window where you want to insert this indicator. You would click on Studies. You would then click on Add Study. And the moment you would select Add Study, then you would go for step 2, which is look for the tabs on the left and find the indicator window, and then look and find AutoUFOs. You would then select AutoUFOs, and then you would click OK. And magic, you would now have this tool running in your charts. If you were to use TradeStation, so let me move to TradeStation. So we're gonna see a little bit of a switch of application right now. So it would be great if you could confirm that you see my TradeStation screen. If you could just say a quick yes on the chat box, that would be very useful. Thank you so much, very much. So you can see here the AutoUFO. So just like any other indicator, you could right click, you could enable it, you could disable it. So if you disable it, when you right click, the indicator is gone. If you right click and you enable it, then the indicator is back on the screen. Okay, and this applies right now. I'm looking at the S&P futures. It could be anything. It could be crude oil. Just click on the new symbol and it will load a new chart. Right now I'm looking at the 30-minute time frame. If you were to look at a different time frame, for example, the weekly, so this automatically would give you a different representation of where are your green UFOs and where are your red UFOs. Okay, so that would be it. Okay, so I'm just coming back to the slides right now, and then I'll go back to the charts one more time to continue with specific examples. So in this slide, you can see the instructions to do this with TradeStation 10. The one I just showed you with TradeStation real time was TradeStation 9.5, just to give you both fields, but it's kind of the same. And then another way to have access to the app would be to use the ready-to-use workspace. So what you would do is you would just, step one, launch the App Store dashboard by hovering your mouse cursor over the apps bar. And the moment you expand it, you would click on the Trading App Store Updates button, and then it would give you access to this other window. So step two, you would just click on the orange button, which is the launch button, and that would open a ready-to-use workspace with a couple of charts, a matrix for you to take your trades, and the AutoUFOs is already in it in case you want to avoid adding it manually. Okay. Anyway, so let's continue. Calibrating. So calibrating AutoUFOs, and I'm going to demonstrate that in a second now with a real-time chart. Calibrating your AutoUFOs is a key process in defining how the analysis is carried out, and this will impact the potential results obtained using the app. There is a complete explanation on how to calibrate in the user guide, and the user guide is something that you could find. Let me go back to screen sharing. So I'm going to switch again to the website. So here is the website. You should be able to see the website right now. Here we go. So here on the right under subscribe, you have supporting documents, and you have two PDF files, which are the documents. Alternatively, you can also connect with our website, which is www.tradewithufos.com, and then you have a guide section where, when you click on guide, you can either download, if you love reading manuals, you can either download TradeStation 9.5 or TradeStation 10.x version of those manuals. If you are not into reading manuals, okay, if reading manuals is not for you, then you just scroll down, and then you have a collection of YouTube videos where basically the manual is explained to you. So you will spend just less than an hour, I would say, watching those videos, and you would now be explained on how to do everything, including calibrating, which is the video in the bottom part. Okay, so coming back to the slides, calibrating, it's a key process, as we were saying, and it's explaining the user guide. So we strongly encourage you to either read the user guide or watch the videos, as I just said. These can be accessed using tradewithufos.com/guide, and the calibration input is in the end down to the user's personal adjustments and is at their own risk. Now, when calibrating, you will be able to display measurements that represent statistical performance of the app. And someone was asking about this earlier on the chat box. So let me go back to TradeStation real time, and let me perform a little bit of calibration so you get to see how this is done. And I will explain a little more in detail the result obtained. Okay, so for example, I'm just gonna move to the euro. I believe at this moment in time you should be seeing my TradeStation screen and the euro. I'm gonna pick, I don't know, any random time frame. So for example, the 4-hour time frame for the euro. So I'm switching to 240 minutes charts, and this could be any market. It doesn't need to be the euro. Okay, so so what do we do now? Well, you could go ahead and right-click Format Analysis Technique at the AutoUFO app, or a little bit of a faster way to get into it is just find any of those rectangles, and on the edge, just double click on it and click yes, and that will bring you into the input pop-up window, which is the format indicator options for AutoUFOs. Okay, so notice that here we have the first parameter is calibration, which comes by default as 0.5. And the second one is show the stats. Okay, so there is a bunch of other parameters which I will not have time to address in this section, but you could certainly watch those YouTube videos. The two parameters I will discuss in this session, just because of lack of time, is the one that talks about show UFO stats, and I just changed it from false to true. Because the moment I do that and I click OK, now on the screen is going to give me a number, which is 60.76% in this particular case, with the euro in this particular time frame. And this is going to represent the statistical performance of the AutoUFOs with the current calibration settings. Notice if I double click again, click yes, and go back to inputs, and I change the calibration setting from 0.5 to, let's say, 0.6, this, and I click OK, this is going to change the way how the algo is running behind the scenes, and therefore it's going to change the statistical performance. Different parameters will end up producing different results. So I changed to 0.7 now, and now you have another result again. And the UFOs show on the screen slightly different, and also you have the inner circles in a slightly different location. Basically, I didn't say, let me say now, the darker circle within the UFO, within the flying saucer, represents where the algo assumes and identifies where the highest concentration of on-field orders should be. Okay, that's what the tool is doing. So in a perfect world, the perfect entry, the perfect exit is where the darker circle is, even though sometimes the market may not get there and turn or stop right before. But the perfect entry, if you wish, or the place on the chart where you have the greatest concentration of orders, it's the darker circle. Okay, so you want to spend a little bit of time adjusting, and we have actually created certain videos on how to do that. We have a YouTube channel, so maybe you want to check out the Trade with UFOs YouTube channel, where we have a 1 hour long video on looking at calibration and things like that. So maybe you can also do that. But let me do it very quickly here for you. So for example, let's say you want to trade the euro in a 5-minute time frame. So I'm switching to 5 minutes. And notice the first thing that you notice is probably that in a lower time frame, you have a higher number. Okay, and why is that? Well, it's quite simple, because this blue figure represents the statistical performance when looking at price movement going from a green UFO to a red UFO, or vice versa, from a red UFO to a green UFO, knowing that sometimes UFOs are close to each other and sometimes UFOs are far from each other. So, anything could happen at any moment in time, because, market conditions change. So if I look at the 30-minute time frame, what was the market I was looking at earlier today? I think it was Amazon, I believe it was. Let me switch to another market just to make my point here. So not this one. Or to be honest, I'm thinking, I'm speaking by heart. So maybe my memory is not in the perfect place right now. But basically, you can see that sometimes UFOs are further away from each other, where sometimes UFOs are closer to each other. So that would depend on where we got these on-field orders, and that would depend from market to market. So you change to crude oil, and it may be a complete different story compared to other markets. You change to the euro, it may be a complete different story. So in any case, this 61.70 number that we see right now, it's representing where the probability of, once this market was to reach that red UFO, based on the data that we have loaded on the screen, which obviously depends on your parameters as well when you switch to format symbol, and you look at the amount of data loaded. In this case, I got 1,000 plus bars loaded on my chart. So if I change this to more, if I change this to 5,000, then it's going to give me more data. If I change this to 3,000, then it's going to be more data. So I could either load more or less data on my screen. And depending on the data loaded, it's going to give me a different measurement, which should be similar, but obviously could change, especially if you use markets with gaps and things like that. So you could have a little bit of a different measurement. But also, what is very, very useful to do is that when you do this calibration process, so I'm going to go back to the 1,500. One thing that is very useful, take a look. Now I'm using November 29 as the date, okay, which is today. For me, I am presenting this session from Asia, so for me it's already November 29. So if you look at November 29, it shows 61.99. But something that could be very useful for you is to run what if scenarios. For example, what if you did that, I don't know, 2 months ago, like for example in September. So what if you did the calibration in September 29? So click OK, and let's go back and see what the result would be. And it was 58% if you did that 2 months ago. What if you went back in time and you did that 2 months before? Like now we are talking about July, or what about June, for example? So now you are looking at So we just need to wait for data because now I just cleared my cache folder earlier, so I need to wait for TradeStation to deliver all the data to the chart. Okay, so here we go. So now it was 66%. So again, depending on the time frame you use and the amount of candles you load on the chart, you will get slightly different results. But as long as those results are ranging within a tight range, for example, anywhere between, let's call it 50 something high to 60 plus 70, well, probably that means that the market that you're trading is likely to remain quite reliable, right? And depending on user preference, you would vary those calibration settings. And I could talk about this for a long time, which I would, as I said already, I would recommend you to watch the video we have in our YouTube channel. If you look at Trade with UFOs in YouTube, because there are multiple things you could do, and there is an impact of changing that calibration setting to a greater number or to a lesser number. To say very quickly here, because of limitation with time, I would say if your number is small, for example, 0.4, 0.3, typically what would happen is that typically you would end up with a lesser probability because your UFOs are a little narrower. And if the UFOs are a little narrower, what this means is that the distance between entries and stops is less. So you are more likely to be stopped out. But also the distance to the rival UFO, where is the red UFO compared to the green UFO? The distance between them is likely to be more because those UFOs are less deep. They are narrower instead of being wider. So depending on those calibration settings, you kind of impact a little bit your trading performance. So I will recommend you, I'm going to go back to 0.5 just because it's the standard setting. And I will recommend you to spend a little bit of time with that in order to find your sweet spot based on your trading preference as a trader. Okay, but let's continue. Let's continue because really I would like to find time to look at real-time markets as well later and also answer your questions. So using AutoUFOs, there are multiple ways to use AutoUFOs. We will explore multiple scenarios for all sorts of traders and styles. We will differentiate between directional and non-directional. Let's begin with directional. So trading directionally, let's talk about trading directionally, crash course on trading directionally, which probably we all understand. But let me phrase it just so we are in the same page. The idea behind trading directionally is to enter a market ready to catch and ride a move and profit from a market move in a given direction, either going long to profit from an upward move or going short to profit from a downward move. So in order to do so, the opening and the closing time of the trade is critical, since entering or exiting too soon or too late would end up in a problematic situation. So the on-field orders concept behind the AutoUFOs app could certainly be useful when aiming to identify the best moment to initiate a trade and to finalize it and collect any profit that may have been produced. So let's talk about using AutoUFOs on its own first. So here is an example. Here's a before case where we were looking at the 60-minute time frame of the euro. The price of the euro is in the middle of nowhere, but right above there is a red UFO. So what do we know? We know that if the euro was to hit that that red flying saucer, we know the on-field orders. Okay, we know the on-field orders that are waiting to get filled at that particular price point will get executed at that time, and therefore the euro presents a higher probability turning point. 60 plus. Let's call it 60 plus based on what we saw earlier in the calibration. For the euro to turn and start moving downward. So the moment that market will reach that red UFO, you could have initiated a trade, and you can see on the second screenshot, which is during the life of the trade, that the euro is falling out of that particular red UFO and even further. Okay, so that could have been a good entry. Not only a good entry, actually, the fact that it turned there was not a surprise, but the fact that then you got a red UFO show up after you entered, it's telling you that you are not the only one entering this market, but more on-field orders are entering the market, probably institutional orders, and therefore that's a trade where probably you're likely to reach a pretty far away target. So that could be a great indication to stay in the trade and let the profits run. So again, just little insight here. And talking about insights, insights. Um, think about and take a look at this, which I haven't mentioned. You may have noticed earlier. Let's go back to the TradeStation screen. So I'm switching applications here, and you may notice that some of the UFOs are dark red and some of the UFOs are light red. And the same happens, if I look for other markets. So let's move to the British pound, for example. The same happens if I look at green UFOs. Some of the UFOs, I'm going to have to load a little more data. Let me switch time from here to 240, for example. So some of the UFOs, as you can see here, are light green, where some of the UFOs, for example, in a different time frame, I'm switching to the 60-minute time frame. So some of the UFOs may be dark green. So again, we just need to wait for the data to be downloaded because I deleted the cache folder before beginning this presentation to avoid any technology issue. So it seems that my internet is slow at the moment for whatever reason. So I'll come back to, okay, here we go. So you can see this green UFO is dark. And then on the red side, that one is a dark red, where this one here is a light red. So basically also the color, the darkness of the color is also representative of the assumption that the algo understands when the algo is being processed. The assumption when it comes to the amount of on-field orders left behind waiting to get filled. In other words, the darker the color, the process expects a greater quantity of on-field orders waiting to get filled. The lighter the color, the algo expects less quantity of orders waiting to get filled. Now, AutoUFOs can also be combined with other tools. So you may have already developed your own methodology. Maybe you have already a technique on how to trade, or maybe you haven't yet. So if you haven't yet, AutoUFOs could be the answer to the key question traders we have, which is when to buy and when to sell. If you already have a methodology, you could add precision by combining the AutoUFOs with whatever you do. So let's take a look. For example, let's say you are a long-term investor and you like to analyze the stocks you buy or sell based on fundamentals. So now you know what to buy or you know what to sell, which is a great beginning. But what about when to buy and when to sell? Now that you know which stock you want to buy based on fundamentals. So for example, we have Apple here. Apple, before the trade was executed, was trading in the middle of nowhere. Now, what do you know? You know that if Apple was to drop down there, where we have those three green UFOs upon each other, there is a lot of buying or many buy on field orders waiting to get filled that have been identified by the app. So if you were to have an event where Apple was to drop that low and you have good fundamentals, it would be perfect for you to buy that stock. And earnings reports is a classical example of that. So here's earnings reports on Apple. That was a good report. You can see here a green figure, good earnings report came out, but at the same time, the stock collapsed very heavily. So what did you do? Well, you just took it down, where the green UFOs are, and here we go. Now Apple turned and moved higher. So what did you know as a trader, as an investor? Well, as a trader or investor, you knew that you bought a good stock based on fundamentals, but not only you bought the stock because it's good, you also bought at the right time. So that's one way on how to combine AutoUFOs with other tools. Now take a look at a technical example. So let's say, for example, you have a methodology that you are implementing already with certain level of success and you are quite okay with your methodology and you happen to be a fib lover. Okay, just an example here. It doesn't need to be like that, but just an example. Let's say you love Fibonacci retracement lines. So what do? So you load your chart and then you have beginning of the move, end of the move, and you draw your Fibonacci retracement lines. And what do you notice? You notice that some of those magenta lines that represent Fibonacci retracement lines, you got the 23, the 38, the 50, the 61.8, you have all those Fibonacci retracement lines. Notice that some of them are in the middle of nowhere. where the 23.4 and the 61.8, those two are lining up perfectly with a red UFO and a green UFO. So what do? Well, you wait for the market to drop to the green UFO where you have the fib and you buy. And where is your target going to be? Well, your target is going to be the next UFO with a fib retracement, which in this case, it could be either the 38.2 or the 23.6. Okay, and you would be out at that particular level. So you bought where you have a fib and you sold where you have another fib. So you're trading fibs, but you are overlaying on top of your fibs, your UFOs, just to add more precision, to add a measured probability of success, which is obviously statistical, and also to make yourself more systematic, more mechanical, and less emotional. Because without this tool, it would be difficult to decide which fib to use. And with this tool, you just ignore the ones in the middle, and you just focus on the 61 and the 23. Why? Because that's where the green UFO is, right? Now, we also said that UFOs can be used for all sorts of trading styles, short-term, intermediate, or long-term. So let's take a look at those different time frames, because the trade duration will ultimately depend on the time frame that you utilize. So auto UFOs can be applied to, as you have seen earlier, to all sorts of time frames: monthly, weekly, daily, 240 minutes, 60 minutes, 50 minutes, 5 minutes, etc. But not only that, I haven't shown it to you, but you can also apply it to tick charts, volume charts. So if I go back to TradeStation and I load, for example, the Nasdaq, and I load a 233 tick time frame. So now you may notice on my upper left, the moment I got the data downloaded, you got a tick time from here, 233 tick bar, and I got my UFOs running on that very tiny time frame. So you could do very active trading during the day with those very tiny time frames. Or same thing with if you were to use the share bars. So now I just switch to share bars, 1,000 share bars, and you can see that now you have a different type of chart. It's not time based anymore. It's based on volume or trading activity. But now you have those same UFOs applies, and you could use them the same way. So really, you can make yourself as active or passive as you wish, and combine this with other methodologies or use it on its own. It really depends on the trader preference. So the larger the time frame, the longer the trades are supposed to last, and vice versa. And again, I would like to point at our website as a source. There is a samples section in the website where there are many trade examples that our users have been sharing with us that we are posting, and those trade examples can be used as a reference. Okay. So let's take a look at a few more examples here with different time frames. In this case, we're going to look at combining MACD and auto UFOs applied to a 4-hour chart, 240-minute time frame. So here is the before. We're looking at the euro being in an uptrend, beautiful trend line moving up. But what do we notice? While the trend is up, we can notice that the MACD is creating a negative divergence. So this is giving us a sign suggesting that the trend may be about to reverse, but you don't want to guess that's going to be the case as a trader. You want to have a little bit of piece of evidence that helps add odds of success. So what would you do? You would wait for the red UFO. Here we go. Now we have the red UFO. So you have the red UFO and you have the divergence. So what do you do next? Well, you would just wait for this market to revisit the red UFO, and now you would enter short, expecting the trend to reverse. And here we go. That's the after. Now the trend line is broken and price went down, and now the trend is down. Okay, and you kind of had a sign, you had a hint from the MACD that told you that the trend is weakening, but the timing for you to enter at the right time was measured more precisely, more systematically, thanks to the Auto UFOs app. Okay, so that's another example here. And again, cannot wait to get to the Q&A answers, Q&A section at the end of this presentation, because I see many questions that are very, very good. Cannot wait to answer. So another example here with applying Ichimoku clouds to a daily time frame. So again, just to give you a feel. So what do we have here? So we're in an uptrend. Why? Well, because the Ichimoku cloud just switched from orange to gray. So you know you are now in an uptrend, and the projected price, it's that particular price, where you also have the green UFO. Let me point at this with a little bit of a laser pointer here. You have that particular price with the crossover. It's a projected good price where to buy, which is lining up with the magenta line, which is one of the key lines in the Ichimoku cloud. Most importantly, lining up with the green UFO where I have the laser pointer. So what does all of this mean? Well, it means that if that market was to come back to that particular point where it just did, it would be time to buy. And what's the good news? The good news is look at the huge amount of distance to the rival red UFO. So you have plenty of room for the market to move. So not only now you are applying two techniques on top of each other that potentially would increase your odds of success. On top of that, you have plenty of room for a pretty nice profit here. So next thing you know, after the trade, you can see how the market turned at this point and went all the way to reach this UFO, and you would have reached your target, and that would be a successful trade. Okay. Again, it's all about probabilities. It doesn't mean, obviously, it doesn't mean that all those trades will be profitable. But statistically speaking, you have two tools adding odds for success for you, which is quite powerful. What about 5-minute time frame? And let's talk about breakouts. Okay, so let's say you're a trader who draws support and resistance lines, and in this 5-minute time frame of the S&P ETF SPY, you have identified turning point, turning point, turning point. So long story short, you have drawn the black line there, which represents a support, and it's either the line will support price, or if it breaks below, this market is likely to keep falling. Now, the only way this market will keep falling is if there are no buy on field orders. If you had a green UFO right below the support, then the market will not be able to keep falling because you have buy on field orders. But in this case, that would be a pretty good trade probably to take. Why? Because the next green UFO is far down. So there is room for price to move. So your breakout is likely going to work instead of those cases where a breakout become a fake out, right? And end of the story, we did get a nice move after the breakout. Okay, and again, why? Because there was room for price to move. There were no on-field orders anywhere close. Okay, so again, this tool is giving you a little bit of an insight of certain things in the marketplace to be used on its own or to be combined. Okay, so now directionally. Okay, so we said that you could make money directionally with stocks, ETFs, options, futures, forex. The only requirement would be to have the data feed active within the TradeStation platform. You know that obviously once you have downloaded your app because you have subscribed to it, you can also, you should also take a look at the data feeds within TradeStation that you want to have active. Maybe you want to trade futures, you want to trade forex, you want to trade stocks, you want to trade options, you want to trade commodities. So whatever you need it active. As long as you have the data feed, AutoUFOs could be applied to any asset, any time frame. So now, what about non-directionally? Okay, what about non-directionally? And this is going to be a crash course on options, which obviously I'm gonna talk about options for 2 minutes at the speed of the light, just so we are in the same page. But if you are not trading options, so I would say it's okay for you to not to pay much attention at the moment, even though maybe this section also catches your attention. Okay, so my assumption, and this message is for the traders that you are currently trading options, or you are educated in the world of options trading. Okay, so based on identifying, you could trade non-directionally with options based on identifying certain places on a price chart that are not likely to be reached, and what you could do is to sell options with strike prices beyond those places. The options contract sold would be out of the money, and they would remain out of the money until the expiration date, as long as that particular market would not reach the strike price of that options that you have sold within that given period of time. So if all of the above was true, the trader would have collected premium for selling options, and those options would expire worthless, allowing the trader to keep that premium that you collected ahead of time. This is what we call trading non-directionally. You basically sell options, collect premium, wait for the options to expire, keep the premium. But that only works as long as that market stays within a range. And another way to say a range is to remain between UFOs, okay? Because the market will remain in a range as long as you have red and green UFOs. If you only got red UFOs, the market is likely to fall. If you only got green UFOs, the market is likely to go up. So it would not tend to remain in a range. But if you have both the green and the red, well, now you may trade non-directionally. So the on-field orders behind the concept of the auto UFOs could be useful to identify those certain places in a chart where a market is not likely to go, where price is not likely to reach that level, right, anytime soon. So keeping in mind the concept that when a market enters a UFO, the expectation would be to see a reaction or a bounce. Well, every one of those bounces is going to give you time. And in the world of the options trading, we talk about time decay, and that's how you make money selling options. Okay. So again, crash course on trading options non-directionally. In addition to this, time passing would lead to a decay of the options premiums, helping this type of trades to accumulate profitability little by little. Keeping in mind that nothing stops time from passing, that's a pretty high probability trade. So furthermore, thinking in terms of probability, and ask yourself the following question: what is a higher probability? To determine with precision where a market is going to turn, or where a market is going, or to determine where a market is not likely to go within a certain amount of time. Well, I think that the second one seems to be a higher probability. If you would rather choose the second case, you may be interested in observing the following illustration. So let's take a look. So in the next illustration, you are looking at a chart with a few green UFOs above and a few red UFOs above and a few green UFOs below. So what's the assumption? The assumption is that that market is not likely to reach this place on a chart anytime soon. In other words, the market is not likely to go beyond the red UFOs or beyond the green UFOs anytime soon. So what could you do? You could select that place on the chart and sell options at those levels. Do iron condors, do strangles, sell options premium, do spreads, credit spreads, and expecting price to remain. So after the fact, what happened? Well, you could see the animation here that market remained between the UFOs. In other words, when you reach that expiration date of the options, these options expire worthless. So you sold them, you collected premium, and then you keep the premium. So in other words, you made money as time passed. Okay. So again, this is, if you are not trading options, probably this explanation was very incomplete. If you are trading options, probably you know exactly what I'm talking about, and you could appreciate the how do you call it, the functionality of this application, of this app, in order to make you more mechanical to select the strikes that you may want to use when you sell options. Okay. So anyway, benefits. So we believe that consistent action leads to consistent results. Therefore, randomness or hope should never be part of your trading game. Auto UFOs help you act mechanically, removing the human component when planning executions, as emotions and subjectivity are probably the trader's biggest enemies. So benefits, well, we're gonna fight all of this with this app. So first, more precision with entries and exits without any subjectivity. Second, reducing the tedious and time-consuming process of identifying trade ideas. Third, realistic expectations when trading, thanks to the calibration process that reveals statistical performance. So now you know what to expect from a market that you may not never traded before, but now you kind of know what to expect. And you could go back in time and look at, what if I traded this market last year? What if I traded this market last month? What if I traded this market 10 years ago? And you can see those statistical measurements, and that would tell you if you should trade that market or not, and be confident when you execute. Increasing the trader's confidence, which makes easier managing your emotions. Works with assets as long as we have a chart. So make sure you activate the data feed. And then works with all time frames, and therefore applies to all styles of trading and investing. So I'm pretty aware that I went quite fast over some of these explanations here, but again, the reason why is because I wanted to make as much time as possible for your questions. So we'll be spending here close to an hour, and I am happy to stay here for as long as needed to answer your questions. So this will be your turn, and I'm just gonna give you a few minutes, or a few seconds to type your questions in the chat box, and I will begin looking at your questions. Pramod, what are the numbers written next to each green or red rectangles? Are there probability of something to do? Yes, those numbers represent the price of where that UFO is. So if you have a UFO located between 120 to 119 to 120, it means that anywhere between 119 to 120, potentially it could be a good price for you to buy. That's where you have the buy on field orders if the UFO is green, or that's where you have the sell on field orders if the UFO is red. So those numbers next to the UFO represents the price itself. Anil, can auto UFOs be traded? Well, technology is there, but this app does not pursue that goal. In TradeStation, you have two types of analysis techniques that you could add. One type is called indicators. This app is an indicator to be displayed on a chart. Other analysis techniques is what TradeStation calls strategies, and this app is not a strategy. So today we are talking about an indicator app. That's what we are discussing. Okay, so it's not auto traded. Good. So those are the last two questions I have here in the chat box. So maybe I'm gonna go back to the beginning. I know you guys were typing a lot, so Don, I'm gonna be looking at the questions, and depending on time constraints, just feel free to let me know on how much time we have for questions. Okay. Let me see. Let me see. Just give me a second, guys. I'm going back all the way to the beginning of the session. Let me see. There's a lot of text in the chat box. Okay. Many comments as well. So Hannah, how is the statistical performance calculated? So the statistical performance is calculated by measuring every time a market hits a green UFO, how often it will hit the red UFO that is right on top. Or once the market hits the right UFO, how often after hitting the red UFO and you expect it to fall from the red UFO, how often that market will hit the green UFO, which is right below. And when I said right above and right below, you have seen it in the examples. Sometimes there is little room between those UFOs. Sometimes there is plenty of room between those UFOs. So what the statistical performance looks at is what if you took all the trades? Okay, so what would be what would be the result? Okay. Yes, John, effectively, this calculation is doing backtesting. You're right. Now, um, yes and no, because we need to define backtesting, and I want to make sure we are in the same page. So let's say you are a trader, and and right now I'm just adding a little bit of crash course on how to trade, if you wish. Okay. So for you to be profitable as a trader, a great advice that probably most of us appreciate would be that when you execute a trade and you get a winner, you want the winner to be of a greater size, and when you execute a trade and you get a loss, you want the loss to be of a smaller size. In other words, let's say you are a trader and you have a green UFO too close to the red UFO. Well, probably it means that this is not a good trade to be executed because the market is going to bounce. You have a high probability of a bounce, but it's likely to reverse soon because the rival UFO it's very close. So probably you will not take that trade. So when you talk about backtesting, you are right. It's absolutely accurate in the sense that the tool is backtesting, but you as a trader may not have taken all the trades. So I will look at this performance measurement as a performance when it comes to helping you to understand the quality of the market that you trade, the expectation that you should have if you trade that market, the calibration, the adjustment of the tool to fit your risk profile, if you wish, as a trader. But I would not look at that metric as how much money you expect to make from the indicator, because this also depends on how many shares you buy when you buy, are you going to take all the trades or not? So when you talk about backtesting, I will look at it from a statistical point of view, not necessarily from a performance point of view. I think that's important to create that differentiation, okay? Um, okay, okay. I'm just reading your questions. I'm not sure what you mean, Mark. You're asking a question about, is it worth it going beyond the two decimal places? If you could clarify that, I would look at your question again. Um, uh, uh, William, you're asking a few questions there that are very good. Unfortunately, those questions were asked when I was looking at a specific chart, and I don't remember which chart was that. So if you could give me the symbol and the time frame, I would be happy to go back to the chart and look at your question. Hannah, do the UFOs only disappear after they go completely through? Yes. So this has a lot to do with the settings. So I'm going back to the TradeStation chart here, and just for fun, I'm just gonna switch to another market. So I'm looking at gold, and I'm gonna switch time frame too. So just to pick something random, I'm gonna look at the daily time frame of gold futures. Here we go. So here's the time frame that we have. So now back to the settings, and again, please look at the user guide and read everything carefully before you use the tool. But notice that you have certain parameters here which I haven't discussed in today's session because we have no time. But one of them is hide hit UFO. So if I was to type false instead of true, notice that these would reveal other UFOs that in other cases they would be hidden. Why? Because what the tool is trying to do, the tool is not trying to hide anything. What the tool is trying is to highlight more than to hide. What the tool is trying to do is to highlight what is of a higher probability for you, and therefore ignore what is of a lesser probability. So if you select as a parameter hide and you type it true, then the tool will hide what is less probability. In other words, highlight what is higher probability. If you were to type it as false, then it was going to show you everything. Okay, and by the way, this may be also the answer to your question, William, now that I think about it. John, can we see that chart again? Yeah, John, it would be great to know what chart was that, but unfortunately, I was not looking at the chat box at the time, so I'm not sure. Pramod, Pramod, is your question about level on levels? The more UFOs you have on top of each other, the higher the probability. So, for example, here you have two green UFOs that are, overlapping each other. That's great. That increases your probability. If you only have one, then the probability is the probability from one UFO. If you have two UFOs working for you, then you have double the probability. So, yeah. So, uh, John, you're looking to trade Forex in an end of the day strategy. I work full time and I can look at the charts. What time frame? Yes. So if you're going to be looking at the markets once a day, um, again, that your question is a trading question more than a technology question, and we're supposed to talk about technology. But just to give you a quick answer, and feel free to send an email to us. I would suggest that maybe you want to use a time frame like 4-hour time frame or daily time frame. Probably if you were to go below 4-hour time frames, then you would miss trades, and that may end up frustrating for you. So if your time availability is once per day, just look at the 4-hour time frame or the daily time frame. Very good. Yeah, Christopher. Christopher, I see your question. Feel free to send a question. Feel free to send an email because I do have a solution for that. John, risk to reward. You're asking risk for reward again. Lovely question, John. If you don't mind to take this on the side because this is a trading question, and today we are supposed to spend time talking about technology more than trading. So very, very good question with the risk versus reward, but right now we need to focus on the tool itself. What is the basis of UFO? UFO is looking at order flow, Vicentius, and is doing many, many things behind the scenes. Um, it's a pretty advanced algo looking at many things behind the scenes, okay? And um, of course, there is a lot of, thousands and thousands of lines of code looking at many, many things that a human being would not be able to do manually in a reasonable amount of time. Okay, so that's pretty powerful. But in the end, the answer is it's looking for on-field orders. That's the key, and giving you a measurement and also a location on the chart with the dark circle within the circle, and so now you know where the greatest concentration of orders are. That's the bottom line. Let me see. Oh, got it, Mark. I understand now your question when you talked about the two decimal places. You could certainly go for two decimal places with the calibration when you talk about 0.59 instead of 0.6. This is going to be your decision. If you find a parameter that produces a significant difference, then I would say it makes sense to use two decimal places. Again, just go over the process and not only adjust the app in the now, we just go back in time and adjust it for months in the past or years in the past, and whatever number you feel is the one that makes you happy and produces the results that are desired for you, that's the number I would select. Okay, if that means two decimal places, I would say go for it, not a problem. Pramod, the tool is not looking at times of the day. You're asking about the US, the London, the Euro Open. The tool is looking at on-field orders across the board. And think about it. There is this common myth out there, which statistically you can prove the opposite is true. So there is this common myth where UFOs that would be formed during US time zone would be more robust or would tend to work better than other time zones. And the reality is that in the end, it depends on the amount of on-field orders left behind. Actually, as a rule of thumb, I would go as far as saying the opposite is true, because if a UFO is formed during US time zone, there is a lot of trades that took place because it's very active as a time zone. And if many trades took place, that means that you have less on-field orders left behind. So maybe the European time zone or even the Asian time zone would produce a higher probability of success. But again, beyond the time zone, remember the tool is looking for on-field orders, and it's showing you where the greatest concentrations are. So this detaches you from time. Okay, and if you really want to be totally detached from time, well, this is how you do it. And now you don't need to care about time zones at all. You just look at the euro here, for example. So you just look at a volume chart, like the share time frame that I was exposing you to earlier. The chart is loading here, the data, so from the internet. So it's pending data PD on the upper left. We just need to wait for a sec. But in just a second, we'll have the complete chart in front of us. And what is the good news? Well, this chart that is forming as we speak, as the data is being loaded into my computer, this chart is not time sensitive because every candle has the same weight. Every candle represents the same amount of trades, no matter if it was Asian time zone or US time zone. So if you really want to detach yourself from time, don't look at the time scale, just change the time frame and forget about time frames based on time. Okay, so here is the chart that just fully loaded now that I receive all the data on my cache folder, and here we go. You can see that the performance, 60 something percent, is similar no matter if the time frame that you use it's time based or the time frame that you use it's not time based, which means that the algo behind the scenes is looking for something quite advanced beyond what the human eye could do. Okay. The last chart had 60%. Yes, you're correct, Deborah. It's going from the red to the green or green to the red, the closest one, which sometimes is going to be close and sometimes it's not going to be close. Yes, Vicentius. So now you have seen earlier when we talked about the you're asking about the subscription and how much the app would cost you in a monthly basis and so on. So you have seen earlier when I showed you the website with the subscription that this tool is priced at $89 a month as a subscription. For you to have access to it, you can actually have it for free, and you can actually have it for free for life if you want to. The only thing you have to do, as it's written in the let me read it for you. AutoUFOs can be accessed for free in exchange for trade examples that use our app. So it's a very simple win-win proposal here. The duration of this free period would depend on the amount and the frequency of trade examples provided. If you're interested in participating on our samplers program and would like to gain access to a special link that will grant you free access to the app, please contact rich@tradewithufos.com. So we'll chat about this with you. But basically, as long as you are willing to share some of your trades with us, so we can use your trade examples to promote our app to other users that are not aware of this tool yet. So we would post some of your trade examples in social media and so on. And by the way, we can make them anonymous if you choose to. So we don't need to share your name if that makes you uncomfortable. So as long as you're willing to do that, we would give you access to the app for free. If not, then the subscription is $89 a month. Here we go. So here we go. Yep. So I believe that I did answer all your questions, guys. It's really been a pleasure to conduct this session for you today, and also thank you so much to TradeStation for allowing me to connect with your customer base, TradeStation, amazing traders around the world. And Don, thank you very much. Jesus, thank you very much. Michael, also thank you very much. A pleasure and an honor to be here. And anything you guys may need, please shoot us an email, and we'd add additional information in the form of answers to anything you may need, as well as suggestions that you may have as you start using the tool. So thank you so much, everybody.